Gee, Frank, what do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
They're Pinky and the Brain. Yes, Pinky and the Brain. One is a genius, the other's insane. They're laboratory mice. Their genes have been spliced. They're Pinky and the Brain. Brain.
Welcome to Pinky's Podcast, Week 7. Lots to talk about today. Going to go over scores and kind of address everybody's team for a little bit, or at least most teams in the league. Right now I'm in the middle of a mid-season crisis. It's like a midlife crisis, I think, but for me it's a lot worse. I'm actually scared for my own well-being right now. I keep having silent but deadly farts, so if you ever see a disgusted look during this podcast, it's either because of my team or it's because of the current smell in the room. It's fucking awful. Also today, before this podcast, I was listening to Fat Joe. Actually disappointed I had to pause the Lean Back remix to record this podcast for you motherfuckers. Also not good. And I'm currently using the dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have tactic, which explains this shirt. And my pea-sized brain can't figure out that the webcam works on a mirror, so I can't figure out how to show the Ellen Legend, but it says Fantasy Football Legend. Start with the scores. Jeff 106, my team didn't even bother to show up at 48. Espo's Bag of Dicks team scored 108 and beat Eddie, who had 71. Dwyer 88. Brian Mayette 94. Kyle 83, Brian Brothers 79, and Ben 130, Chuck 70. Starting off with one of the more confusing things that I've ever fucking seen. I didn't even notice it until I was going over the scores this morning. Espo benched his fucking defense for no reason last night, or Sunday night. Eddie didn't have anybody playing. Espo was up by like 37 points. It wasn't like his defense was... No defense could ever get negative 37 points. I don't understand that logic. He was better off playing the defense in case of a tiebreaker, but once again, Espo has no fucking clue what he's doing. And yet he still somehow... I think he has a winning record. I don't get it. He must be going to church every Sunday and praying for his shit team to perform well. It honestly makes me mad. I've never seen such a dumb decision, and somehow he still wins. I don't get it. It's like he was trying to preserve a win. You do that shit when you're like your team's winning by 2 points and you don't want your defense to fuck you over. I understand that. 37 points, that's completely unexplainable. But moving on from that, Eddie's team is kind of going downhill lately. He started off having a pretty good season. It's like the reverse of last season. But we'll see how that works out for Ed. I don't really have much else with that. Then the Brian Dwyer matchup was interesting to watch last night. Mayette had DeAndre Hopkins going. Dwyer had Texans D. I don't really remember what the score was going into that game, but that one came down to the wire, and Dwyer just can't buy a win at this point. And he actually got a good week to face Brian. Brian was missing Calvin Johnson, Monte Ball, and Jeremy Maclin. He was just his team was all bandaged together, and he had Vereen on his bench who put up 23 points, and Dwyer still couldn't eke out a win. Kyle versus Brian Brothers was also pretty interesting. They had Kyle had a 23-point lead. Brian Brothers had Le'Veon Bell going. For a little while, it actually looked like Brian Brothers was going to eke out a win there, but then Bell just hit a wall. Kyle's running back situation is pretty rough, though. Alfred Morris is banged up. Fred Jackson seems like he's going to be out for a while. And he doesn't really have anybody on his bench to go to besides Frank Gore. Then we're going to Ben and Charlie's team. I actually don't have much to say about Charlie's team. Charlie's team puts up about 70 to 80 points a week. Never has a great week. Never has a really shitty week, though. He might have had one. But he's just... Charlie's hoping for good matchups at this point to just get a win here and there. Ben, though, his team's pretty good. Had another unreal week. He's been doing pretty well this year. I'm kind of scared of his team, but he's fucked if the Broncos have a bad week. And I don't know what his backup running back situation's like, because he has Hillman going right now, which is awesome, but when Monte Ball comes back, that's probably going to hurt him. And then the two Thomases have been carrying his team for a little while. And then getting to Jeff's team and my team. Jeff's having a better year than I expected. At the draft, when Jeff had to settle for Carson Palmer for his starting quarterback, I thought he was going to have a little bit of a struggle this season, but he's leading the standings. He's doing pretty well, and he's stacked at wide receiver now. He has Dez Bryant, Randall Cobb, and A.J. Green. He's going to be tough to beat. Real tough to beat when you only put up fucking 48 points, which gets to my team. Cutler needs to start throwing to fucking Brandon Marshall. The locker room problems this week, I don't know what's going on with that. I'm not starting either of them this week because at this point I'm just being a fan for the Patriots this week. If it works for me, good. And if it doesn't, I don't give a shit. Just gonna go with the double-edged sword. Hope the Patriots play really well and Brady throws to LaFell all the time. And hope I don't regret benching Cutler and Marshall. I am very, very close to calling it quits on Keenan Allen. He actually put up 50 yards this week. He had 10 targets, which isn't bad, but he just can't find his way into the fucking end zone, and I'm getting really sick of it. Need a deep breath for this one. My tight ends are pissing me off more than I can begin to explain. I've had 1 point from my tight ends in the last 3 weeks. I've averaged 0.3 points from my tight ends in the last 3 weeks. I think they're still ranking pretty close to the top 10, both of them. And they can't score points the last 3 weeks. I don't understand. Larry Donnell put up 5 this week, but he was on my bench. Jordan Cameron put up 19 last week. I started him this week. He got 1 catch for 6 yards. The Browns fucking blew against the Jaguars. I don't understand that. The Browns are a shit team. They're just not that bad. And then Jamal Charles was my only player who scored in double digits, which doesn't bode well any week. But Ben Tate and Giovanni Bernard were fucking atrocious. I can't stress that enough. They averaged 2 yards per carry. It wasn't like they got real shit amount of touches. Giovanni Bernard, in his defense, I think he had 7, 8 touches, whatever. That was just because the Bengals were fucking atrocious this week too. I think Mohamed Sanu led the team in scoring with 8 points. That's fucking awful. And then Ben Tate had 16 carries for 30-something yards. That's awful. That won't keep up. Ben Tate's actually a good running back, I believe. It's tough for him to stay healthy, but he's a good running back. So, hopefully my team turns it around. I am so close to a breaking point, and hopefully I come out of this mid-season crisis a little bit better, because I don't know how much farther downhill I can go. If it keeps up like this, next week I might be on a meth habit. This is awful. I hate this league. I'm facing Kyle next week. I don't know how that's going to turn out. I better fucking win because I can't deal with another loss and having it fucking rubbed in my face. Especially another 48-point performance. Last night having wings with Jeff was fucking miserable. Well, for the beginning, because I just kind of accepted my fate and moved on from there. But can't do that again. Won't do that again. Coming back strong this week. Fucking hope to God. I might just start going to daily mass and praying for my fantasy team. Something needs to happen. See you next week.